So yeah, my name's Will Bailey. Thank you so much for coming. I drank quite a lot last night, so this might be a bit rusty. Yeah, so I'd just love to talk to you about some malware I've been seeing and doing a lot of research on recently, called PlugX. Has anyone come across PlugX recently? You see an infection? Yeah? Was it a worm or?
Yeah, it was remnants of an old USB worm.
Yeah, probably it. Okay, so I'm from Axbridge. Has anyone heard of Axbridge? Yeah, it's a really cute sort of medieval town, about 14 minutes from here. Got about 5 years experience in cyber now. I'm a spaghetti bolognese connoisseur, and I'm a terrible League of Legends player. Does anyone here play League? Yeah. We've already played together, haven't we? So, yeah. I'm Hardstock Gold for a long time. It's awful. So, more importantly, this is my dog. This is Aurelia. She's a border collie. Very friendly. Okay, so on to the fun stuff. What is PlugX? It's a rat. It's a remote access Trojan utilized by China Nexus threat actors. So really, this has probably been developed by the Chinese nation state, and then they used Nexus threat actors to work through them. The main goal of PlugX seems to be data exfiltration, and it's used for the CCP to gain like strategic advantages in like the military or or whatever government they're competing against. So the main capability of PlugX is uploading and downloading information, keystroke logging, webcam control, and accessing a remote command shell. It was previously distributed through phishing emails, so that would just be like a standard VBS attachment or a zip file, a .exe file. But it came from like 2008, but in 2022 or early 2023, it started to, a new variant came along, which was a USB worm. So this USB worm has been really, really prevalent. It was first really reported by Sophos in March 2023. But like I said, it'd been around a few months before then. This USB worm works by exploiting benign processes, benign third-party applications, which are expected to be on sort of corporate government-related endpoint. So it looks to exploit things like Adobe Acrobat, Steam, and Flash Player. I know I say corporate endpoint, Steam doesn't really come into there. So Steam actually demonstrates that they're targeting civilians and their personal computers as well, which is quite interesting. And Flash Player, which is weird because you think no one uses it, but Flash Player is still being maintained and used in China. I forget the exact reason why, but it's still big over there, so they're exploiting that as well. And then they will exploit those benign processes to perform a DLR sideload, which then sets up the command and control connection. So you'll see this command line here, which says blah, 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 recycler.bin. This recycler.bin is the directory which is set up on the USB flash drive, which the files are moved into if the infection is successful, and then they are exfiltrated out of. I'm really sorry, like, this image is really poor quality. I couldn't find a way to upscale it. But you'll see that on the infected USB device, you have these two files here. The recycler.bin, which is the directory which contains the files which are exfiltrated, and an ini file. PlugX tries really hard to hide itself. It actually uses Linux files. So a lot of the actual files which are used to propagate the infection and to spread across networks onto other USB devices are invisible to the file explorer. But if you see something like recycler.bin on a USB, then it's going to be PlugX, almost certainly. Okay, so for threat actors, like I said, it's the CCP, the nation state, seem to be the key threat actors here, but they're working through their sort of Chinese espionage groups. So if you look up the threat textures and like virus total or something, you're going to see like panda, 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 panda. So stow panda, deputy dog, Mustang panda, sorry. There was also a Eastern European ransomware group called Black Pasta. Has anyone come across them? They were seen using PlugX a couple of years ago. I forget the actual attack they were using it in. So it does get used by ransomware gangs as well, but it seems to mostly derive from the CCP. As for victims, I had a really hard time researching specific names of like companies and institutions that fell victim to PlugX infections or attacks. But this is just a list. So you can see it's all government related. And the biotech, pharmaceutical and vaccine organizations, they were targeted hard when COVID took off. So in that period where the virus broke out and people were competing to develop the first vaccine, these organizations were getting hammered with COVID, with PlugX. So it really does show that it's the nation state who are working here. I didn't start my timer. Am I doing okay for time?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so this is a pretty simple chart. We'll come back to it in a minute because there's a story as to how they got this information. But this is just this just shows you the countries which are targeted most with PlugX. So to remediate and harden against PlugX, hash-based blocking is really effective because PlugX, it aims to move throughout a network onto different USB flash drives, but it's replicating the same files over and over again. So if you can get those block indicators in place whenever you see an infection, it quite quickly gets the spread of PlugX contained. And again, IP blocking as well, because it's using the same files, it's trying to hook up to the same IPs and command and control servers over and over again. So blocking IPs is really effective. EDR and AV, I mean, obviously, EDR, especially with real-time response, if you're remoting onto a host trying to remediate a PlugX infection, you'll probably struggle to actually find the files on the USB drive that are causing the infection. And again, this is because it's using like Linux files and it's trying to hide itself from the file explorer. You also have the possibility that by the time you jump onto the host, the USB has been removed, so you can't actually do anything on it. ASR rules, so you can use things like Defender and Intune to block suspicious executables from being executed on flash drives. Or if you're really cool, you could just block USBs altogether, which is what I'd love to do one day. I always think of USBs as needles. If you went to the doctor's and for a blood test and that needle had been in 3 other people's arm, you probably wouldn't want it going into your arm, right? So if you know a USB has been in 5 other people's laptops, you don't want it going into your work machine. So that's user awareness. And then the self-deletion command. So we'll come on to this next, actually. So this French security vendor, I don't know how to pronounce their name. I think it's Sequoia, maybe. They did a lot of research into PlugX this year. And they underwent a sinkholing operation, which was really interesting. So they found this IP address here, which was being used for PlugX command and control. And it was abandoned, so they reached out to the cloud provider, and for something like $7 a month, they took ownership of the IP. They set up a shell, and then they had telemetry over something like 2.5 million IPs, which were beaconing into that server. So that's where this data came from. This was taken over a 24-hour period on the command and control servers, say, sinkhold. They also identify that PlugX has a self-deletion command, which is this string here. When this is encrypted into an RT4 payload and delivered from the command and control server to the infected endpoint, it will delete all of the registry keys, file directories, and just pretty much all of the files which are used to maintain the infection. But it doesn't really do anything on the USB itself. It's just on the actual infected endpoint. But because of legal issues, Sequoia, they're just a security vendor, so they couldn't actually start sending these self-deletion commands out when they had control of the IPs or the shell, because that would come under like computer misuse. There's a lot of like legal turmoil around that. However, the French authorities and Europol, they used Sequoia's research before the Olympics began this year, and they started a PlugX cleanup operation in France. So they just identified as many French IPs as possible that were reporting into the abandoned C2 infrastructure, and just sent the self-deletion commands in the encrypted payloads, and they remediated a ton of machines in France. And now other nations are copying this research. So Malta, Croatia, Portugal, Slovakia, Austria, they're all working with Europol to remove PlugX from their countries. So to conclude, PlugX remains an active threat to government organizations, although the private sector should still consider PlugX as a very real threat. Flash drives remain a prevalent attack vector. Based on the victims of PlugX, it's quite obvious that it's the Chinese nation state that are behind this malware. Hash IP-based blocking, AV, and EDR are a really reliable means of containing threats, although they don't fully remediate it, as it's really hard to actually remove the files from the USB. So to actually clean up the USB, you probably need to get your hands on it and either stand on it or reformat it in a lab or something like that. So I think organizations should look to harden against PlugX by implementing USB policies and strict user awareness. Any questions?
I'll ask a question. So, can you stop the infection by disabling auto runs on USBs on Windows?
Yes.
So you can push root policy out.
Yeah. So I think in Intune the ASR rule would be blocking suspicious executables on a flash drive or something like that. That would that should block the infection. Yeah.
You said the servers that were abandoned, and you took over those IP addresses. Do you know why they became? Was it all the servers that consulted that were abandoned, or was it just some?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess the servers just, they just had so many abuse scores against them that they just moved on to different infrastructure. But again, because the files aren't replicated, the files are just replicating themselves. The IPs are still beaconing into it if the infection is still there. Yeah.
For blockchain technology, we usually have some condition inside the network to transfer money from a node A to node B. Why we don't have this kind of technology for not throwing malwares to the technology, not throwing in that to work in that sovereignty of us, for example, European sovereignty. So based on the blockchain technology.
So, sorry, can you just say that? I didn't quite.
So we usually give the customer or the user to be careful about the DLL files, like .exe file, as a Trojan or malware or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
But in terms of governmental level, why we don't have the blockchain technology, not allowing any of DLL files or .exe file to work in our sovereignty, so the people to be free of caring about this kind of thing, which means that all need to have a kind of authorization to work. For example, that exe doesn't create it in our sovereignty, doesn't work.
Oh, right. I see what you mean. I mean, it's far from my experience with AVs and EDR tools and threat intelligence.
Yeah, but that part of hash based is more related to blockchain sound. So that works based on the hash function.
Okay, I don't know much about blockchain, so I don't know. I don't know quite how to answer that question. But I mean, talking about different sovereignties, I mean, I know some organizations, they do block connections from certain countries and signers from certain countries, but also a lot of organizations are spread across the globe, so you can't block every nation. If that makes sense. Sorry, I think. Yeah.
maybe you have a
Yeah. Anyone else?
No, I think we're all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.